Alright, hello and welcome back to another live deck profile. I have a few of these coming up actually for once. Apparently when I build decks in real life, I do it all at once, a whole bunch at once. Apparently there's no in between there. But yes, today we're taking a look at UA, which is actually something I started messing with, oh man, like 2-3 years ago now. Messed with it, I had a really bad build, I played it for a couple weeks, put it away, and never really looked at it again. And I took it with me to where I'm living now. It was just kind of sitting there in the back of something, and one day I thought about it and brought it out and started messing with it, and actually really liked it once again. And then I've come up with an actual good, decent build of it. I'm enjoying it a lot more, and I've actually been playing it a lot. So basically the premise of this deck is UA Perfect Ace here. Now he's basically a walking Solemn Judgment, and to add even more to that, to be able to resolve him even more times and to add even more stun to that is basically what this deck's doing. So we have a little bit of back row, not too much because we couldn't fit a whole bunch in and still have it be consistent and things of that nature. And we still wanted to have all of our bases covered. Hey, joke, because he's a pitcher and baseball has his bases, and let's just get into this one. So starting things off, we obviously have 3 copies of Perfect Ace, since he is the main monster of the deck. Since he's what we're basically trying to turbo out and get to, he's what we're running now. All the UA monsters have the effect where you can return another one you control to the hand to special summon them from the hand, and that is a hard once per turn on all of them, so you can't just go ahead and, like Reasoning and do a few UAs or, Monster Reborn one and just, spam 3 of him out. You actually have to kind of get him out in different ways. But we do have a kind of cheeky way of doing that on our opponent's turn, so not too big of a worry there. But yes, he's essentially a discard 1 card to negate a monster effect or spell and trap effect or activation. He pretty much hits anything in the game. The only problem is if your opponent has something that can swing over him without activating an effect. They can also force him out early with things like True Kings. Obviously, if they go to resolve the Fire True King or something, I'm going to have to negate it, or else they could just swing over his defense. But overall, still a very amazing card there. And really the biggest problem is because it's a discard, you out-resource yourself pretty heavily. Also, given the fact that this deck isn't good in a general sense, and it needs, 3-card setups, kind of in a Dark Magician-esque sense, the 1 discard can make you out-resource yourself fairly quickly. Now, for the 1 normal summon of the deck, we have UA Midfielder, and the reason the normal summon is important because the field spell searches on normal summon. So you want to get to the field spell and to Midfielder, which then in turn gets you to your Perfect Ace. He also has an effect where, during either player's turn, you can target 1 other UA monster you control, return to the hand, and special summon another UA monster from your hand, which is important for our 2 copies of Rival Rebounder. Now, if you special him on your opponent's turn, you can then special summon a UA monster from your hand or graveyard. So, one of the important factors of Perfect Ace is he's a once per turn, not a hard once per turn. So, if you have a setup of Midfielder and Perfect Ace, you can go ahead and resolve the Perfect Ace. If your opponent doesn't have any response, chain Midfielder, go ahead, special out your Rival Rebounder, and then special back a Perfect Ace from the hand or grave, allowing you to resolve his effect multiple times, assuming you have enough cards in hand to do so, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. From there, just to cover our options, we have 2 of the offensive UA cards. We have Dreadnought Dunker and Mighty Slugger. Now, Mighty Slugger is essentially just an Armades, 2300, and Dreadnought Dunker, whenever he inflicts battle damage, he pops 1 card on the field, and he also does piercing. So if we're essentially just going for game, or trying to get over a monster or something, these are the ones that we'll go ahead and search out. And we also have a few more cards of that later, but these are basically your main offensive plays in the deck that you kind of want to keep for, turn 3, turn 4, things like that. And that's actually it for the monsters. From there, we're running 3 copies of UA Stadium. Each time a UA monster is special summoned, actually the first time a UA monster is special summoned each turn, all your monsters gain 500 attack permanently. And also, whenever you normal summon a UA monster, you can go ahead and search for any UA monster from your deck. Now, obviously, to get to that, we have the 2 copies of Terraforming as well. Sadly, the field spell is very average. It would just be better if Midfielder just search on normal summon or something like that. But instead, we kind of have to run the 2-card searcher combo of Midfielder and Stadium. It's suboptimal, but this is one of the kind of bad TCG exclusive archetypes, so what we're really expecting. Now from there we have UA Signing Deal, which is essentially E-Tele, except it negates the effects, and it can't be used as like Synchro or XYZ material, which now you can use it for links, which is kind of interesting, I suppose. And then you take damage equal to the level of the monster you special summon times 300, so 1200 for midfielder, 1500 for perfect ace. Basically just kind of that range there. Now this is important because it actually lets you set up the 2 monsters on field you need for the double perfect ace combo, because obviously if you're just normal summoning, you can't get the midfielder and the perfect ace on field to resolve the rival rebounder, whereas this card is essentially the card that lets you actually resolve that combo. Now from there we just have some more searchable one-ofs in Powered Jersey and UA Turnover Tactics. Now this Turnover Tactics is a very interesting card. If you have 2 more UA monsters, you can go ahead and activate this. It shuffles all monsters on the field back into the deck, and then each player special summons a number of monsters equal to the number shuffled back from their main deck, equal to the number shuffled back into the main deck from the main deck. So why that's important is, say you're playing against someone who just goes ahead and makes 5 link monsters or something, and you have 2 UA monsters on field, you can go ahead and shuffle them all back. You'll special 2 out because you shuffled 2 into the main deck, but they won't special any out because they didn't special any into the main deck. So against any extra deck heavy decks, you can go ahead and just blow them out immediately with this. I'm only running 1 copy because this is obviously just a generic build built to go against anything really, just through some negation tactics. But if you could probably side 2 more copies of this, and then going into game 2 or whatever against a deck that's extra deck heavy, you can just go ahead and focus on resolving this card. Now Power Jersey is kind of the same thing. If you want to go second, you'll probably want to put more copies of this card into your deck. It adds 1000 attack to the monster you equip it to. It can attack twice during each battle phase, and any damage it inflicts by attacking a monster is doubled. So this card just lets you cheese out games super quickly. If you equip this to a Dreadnought Dunker and your opponent has like some low defense monster on the field, you can pretty much go ahead and just game them off of this card alone. Now during the next standby phase, the monster this is equipped to is banished, but you can just go ahead and tag it out to hand, and if this card is sent to grave because the monster is equipped to return to the hand, you can add it back to the hand. So I really never find myself needing more than 1 copy of this card, and these are actually both searchable as well as all of our UA spells and traps through the combination of Foolish Burial of Goods and UA Penalty Box here. Now I'm skipping ahead to one of the traps because it is really relevant right now. Now this, whenever it's face up on the field, if a monster attacks a UA monster before damage calc once per turn, you can banish it for 2 turns basically, which is alright, but you're not actually outing the problem, you're just kind of stalling for a little bit. And it'd be better if it was a spell card if that's what you were trying to do, because it would let you push for game and things like that. But you can also banish it from the grave, including the turn it was sent to the grave, to search for any UA spell card. So this essentially gives us 3 more copies of every spell in our deck, giving us 8 copies of the field spell, 4 copies of Turner Tactics and Power Jersey, 6 copies of Signing Deal. It's very much what you'd expect from this deck. Instead of just having a searcher, you have like a 2-card searcher that you have to run a brick for basically, which is actually something I like about it because it kind of feels like you're playing from behind, like an underdog thing. And I don't know, I just kind of really like that. I also just love being able to play this card because it's the first time I've been able to. But I was also thinking about playing 1 copy of Breakthrough Skill because one important fact of Perfect Ace is he's actually only able to negate on your opponent's turn. So because of that, you could actually send a Breakthrough Skill and still be able to negate monster effects on your turn, but at that point you could just set a strike or something and have it live on your opponent's turn and your turn and things like that. But yeah, so this is the search in the deck. I'm only running 1 copy because drawing it really isn't good. I do like 2 more just because then it's not dead if you draw 1, but you're just increasing your chances to draw 1, and yeah, if you draw multiples of this, it's dead, but you really only need to see 1. I'm back and forth on if I want to run 2, just because then, again, it's live the next turn, say if you open 2 of these, but for now I'm sticking with 1 just for the extra space in the deck. Now for some one-outs, we have 1 Rhoda just to search midfielder, 1 Reasoning because we have levels 4, 5, 6, and 7. The appropriate call against this deck is 5 because Perfect Ace is the main monster, but this lets you hit anything, and this is essentially just another copy of Signing Deal because getting another monster on field with the inherent ability they all have to just tag out and kind of, no matter what monsters are on the field, you can get one out of your hand using that monster. This is essentially just a 4th copy of Signing Deal to set up our main combo. and 1 copy of Upstart, and 3 copies of Desires. Desires is very important because a lot of times the setup for Perfect Ace might take you down to 2 cards in hand, including the Rival Rebounder and 1 other card, meaning you won't be able to actually special summon, or meaning you won't be able to actually negate with the Perfect Ace that you special back to the field, because you'll have to discard 1 with the negate, then you just have Rival Rebounder and you have to special him. So this lets you get the extra cards in hand that you need to actually keep resolving Perfect Ace on your opponent's turn. And rounding off the spells, we have 3 copies of Scapegoat, which for some reason I only have 1 copy of this card. I don't know how that happened. I just never had them. I never played a deck that really used them, and I never ended up getting them, so I only have this 1 that I pulled from an OTS pack. But 3 copies of Scapegoat. If you go for your main combo, you'll have 2 monsters on the field, so you won't be able to resolve this. But there are a lot of turns where you'll just have to settle for just 1 Perfect Ace on the field, and this gives you some power for next turn, which is something the deck is desperately lacking, is that push on the next turn. You can push for damage and after you've negated your opponent's stuff with Perfect Ace and your strikes and things like that, but you can never go for game or really out anything they have on the field if you use up all your cards in hand to resolve Perfect Ace's negation. But this kind of gives you that just extra push. You can just put the damage package on board of Link Spider and Mrs. Radiant, put 4900 on board in addition to what you have. Overall, it just gives you the power that the deck kind of needs for its next turn. And again, that rounds off the spells. And moving on to the traps, a relatively small lineup. Besides the penalty box, we have 3 copies of what should be back to the front. But once again, I don't know how. I guess I just didn't open enough Code of the Duelist. I only have 1 back to the front, so we have 1 common Oasis, 1 back to the front, and 1 super Oasis for the increasing rarity Monster Reborn in defense position within a trap card effect. Title pending. The reason I actually have Ultra Call to Haunted, which I wanted to play, but the special back in defense is important because Perfect Ace is a 2500 defense compared to a 1500 attack. So if you're bringing back an attack, your opponent can just swing over him with one of their normal summons like Candina or something like that. So bringing him back in defense is super important. Also, if you just go ahead and set up 1 of them, and then they, out it after you get 1 negation, or just out it before you get a negation through the battle phase, you can just go ahead and bring it back off of this and still have the negation live. It lets you resolve it more times a turn. If you discard a Perfect Ace off of Perfect Ace, you can go ahead and flip this up and then have another negation live. So this just opens a lot more possibilities, and also adds a factor of recovery that the deck needed as well with how hard you out-resource yourself. From there we have the Solemn Brigade in Strike, Judgment, and Warning. These are essentially just the extra stun cards that we're running to help say no to our opponent. If you can open up the double Perfect Ace in 1 of these, you're set up pretty damn well and have a pretty good chance of actually winning the game from there. Again, the only problem once you reach the point of negating all the stuff your opponent has is you really don't have a play for next turn. But again, we're just trying to solve that through Scapegoat and back to the front and things like that. But anyway, this is just our extra stun and rounds off our main deck count there. Moving on to the extra deck for our Link 4s, we have Borreload and Firewall. I finally have a Borreload. The last regional I went to, I actually pulled Electromite and Saryuja. So I went ahead and picked up a Borreload and some cash, which I was perfectly fine with. Electromite actually went up, which is the card that I was part of the deal for Borreload, so I lost out on a bit there, but it went to a friend, so I'm not really bothered about that. These are obviously both just for Scapegoat. Obviously you can make Borreload straight out of Scapegoat, but Firewall, you actually have to have another monster on field, so you can make a Link Spider and then make a Firewall under it. But it is 1 bounce. You could, if they out the Link Spider or out a monster you summon next to it, then you can go ahead and special another 1 from hand. So there's some cool stuff you can do there. But mostly just for the bounce and obviously Borreload. I don't need to explain why that card is good. For our Link 3s, we have Gaia Saber, Ningirsu, and Decode Talker. Now the one of these that I go into the most is definitely Ningirsu, just because he's amazing and is very easy to make off of Scapegoat, and you can resolve him fully off of that. Decode Talker, I've also gone into off of Scapegoat a few times. I'll just leave a Link Spider up in one of the zones, make a Decode Talker out of the Radiant and the Link Spider, and then go ahead and put a Perfect Ace or something in the other zone, so I have that targeting negation in addition to the inherent negation of the deck. And Gaia Saber is just to dump monsters into for a little bit of extra damage if that's something you need as well. For our Link 2s, we have Akashic, Proxy Dragon, and Mrs. Radiant. You could run Isolde, but I just really never see myself resolving it that much. I had it in the extract, and I don't think I made it once. There's also some terrible glare on Akashic there. Sorry about that. Let's just hang on. I got this. Yeah, that doesn't look unnatural at all. But Isolde really doesn't come up that much. It can set you up for next turn, but usually you're only putting 2 monsters on the board anyway, and you want to keep them face up for your main combo, so there's really no point to making an Isolde, and it gives you something for next turn, but really hinders the turn that you're actually making it in. So I decided not to run it, and I just have it in my trade binder instead. I didn't buy it for this, I pulled it. Make that very clear. But yeah, Mrs. Radiant's just for the Link Spider package. You actually could run a second one of these because all the UA monsters are Earth, so you can just go ahead and make it off of those as well, in addition to the Scapegoat package. But I never really found myself going into the second one much. You can also just add itself back and things like that. Proxy, just dump any 2 monsters into, and Akashic's just that free out if they make a Deco Talker or something like that, or have something in front of the zone. So I always like to have it as an option. And rounding off the links, we have 2 copies of Link Spider, just for Scapegoat there. And that rounds off our links. Finishing off the extra deck, we have 1 copy of Castel and 1 copy of a totally legitimate Tornado Dragon, which is in no way just the Borreload from my last deck profile, but scribbled out and with Tornado Dragon written on it. You shut up. But just some options for rank 4s there. I've never gone into them, but again, the extra deck space in this deck is very loose. And what you'll be going into more is your rank 5s, which we have Adris, Volcasaurus, and to finish off the Volcasaurus package, we have Gaia Dragon. Adris is just that nice because it isn't out to any face-up card on the field, but Volk is the most important XYZ in the extract, considering that the links are all made off of Scapegoat except for Mrs. Radiant. This is essentially the most important card in the extract because 5 is the rank that you'll be able to make the most because you have Mighty Slugger and the 3 copies of Perfect Ace. And it's just the rank I find myself going into the most, which is honestly just like once or twice because you don't go into the extract much outside of Scapegoat. But Volk is important because a lot of times this deck can put 6,000 on board, or you know, a little bit under game on board. And this is just a little extra push that you need the next turn. Like say, because basically what'll happen is you'll go ahead and negate your opponent's effect with the usual Perfect Ace combo. You'll have a midfielder, a Rival Rebounder, and a Perfect Ace on board, which isn't enough for game, but lets you push for some pretty big damage. From there, your opponent's probably going to be able to recover on their next turn through like your 1 Perfect Ace negate or so. So then you can just go ahead, if you draw into another Perfect Ace or draw into a Mighty Slugger, go ahead and make Volk and just push for that damage you need for game. And this is something I definitely recommend having and has actually won me some games here and there. But anyway, that does it for the extract, so I'm actually going to go over the main combo of the deck here. Okay, so basically all you need for this combo is these 3 cards here, or any way to get to these cards. So Reinforcement of the Army, or Terraforming, or Foolish Burial of Goods are all substitutes for these cards. And you just want to see some variation of these 3 cards with obviously the addition of the 2 extra cards in hand, which could just be blank cards or, you know, Solemns or Desires, things like that. And there are more resource intensive ways to do this combo, but this is kind of like the kind of main way that you'll see. Zoomed out a little bit just so this is easier to see. So again, with these 3 cards, the first thing that you're going to want to do is actually resolve the signing deal. Now, we want to do that before Stadium because you don't want to special, you don't want to put up Stadium until you're going to actually special or normal summon or special the monsters that you want to gain the attack. Not something major, but just something a little bit important there. So off of your signing deal, you want to go, you're going to want to go ahead and grab the Rival Rebounder here. So from there you have Rival Rebounder, and the only card you actually need left to complete the usual combo is to actually go ahead and get to your Perfect Ace. Now instead of the Stadium, you could just go ahead and, you know, open a Perfect Ace. That's another way to do it as well, but this way gets you more advantage, so we'll go ahead and show that way off here instead. So you go ahead and activate the Stadium, normal summon your midfielder, search off of the Stadium, and you go ahead and grab one of your Perfect Aces from there. Now you can go ahead and put the Rival Rebounder back into hand, special summon the Perfect Ace, the attack boost kicks in, and you have a 1700 midfielder, a 2000 Perfect Ace, and the Rival Rebounder in hand for your opponent's turn. So let's say you have those 2 blank cards in hand as well, just whatever other cards you drew during that turn. So on your opponent's turn, your opponent goes ahead and activates an effect that threatens you that you want to stop. So you go ahead and negate that with Perfect Ace. You'll ask your opponent if they have any response, or see if they have any response. If they don't, you'll go ahead and chain Midfielder to the Perfect Ace effect, which will bounce Perfect Ace back to the hand, which will special summon Rival Rebounder, which will trigger and go ahead and special summon your Perfect Ace back to the field. And then if your opponent does anything else, you can go ahead and negate that with the same Perfect Ace because he's not a hard once per turn. Now a slight variation on this. Let's say that actually the first card that you go ahead and negate here, you actually discard another copy of Perfect Ace to do so. Now it seems weird, but that's actually better for you in the long run. So instead of that 1 blank card, you'll have another copy of Perfect Ace. So on the first negation, you'll go ahead and discard a Perfect Ace for a Perfect Ace, the whole usual response thing, chain Midfielder effect, bounce this back to hand, special Rival Rebounder, and then special back a Perfect Ace from the graveyard. And actually this should be an attack, because the attack boost will trigger again, giving you 2200, 2700, and 2000. Now the reason that that's important and why opening multiple Perfect Aces is good is because it actually allows you to set this last card you have in your hand. So instead of having, just 2 dead cards in hand that you're discarding for Perfect Ace, this could be a second back row because resolving the combo this way adds the Perfect Ace back to hand, allowing you to discard it for the one you specialed from grave. So you have the 2 negates in addition to whatever card you have set, which could be a warning, or a scolding, or a strike, any of those power cards there. So that's basically the main combo of the deck, and I just wanted to go over that real quick here. But anyway, that long giant ramble out of the way, this is my kind of Stun UA deck profile for this February 2018, whatever time it is now. My camera just hit 420. But anyway, it's a very fun deck. It does have some weaknesses. Obviously you have some pretty heavy setup to do to resolve your main combo. If they ash your signing deal, that hurts. If they ash desires, that hurts. There's a lot of ways that you can hurt this deck, ogreing the field spell, things like that. So it is very susceptible to negation or disruption, but if you do go first and actually get your combo off, you have some insane negation power and can definitely steal some games here and there. But anyway, usual plugs at the end of the episode, link to my Discord and Twitter down in the description. Discord where we just kind of chill, hang out, talk about Yu-Gi-Oh, anime, other things like that. And my Twitter where I'll put out some random Yu-Gi-Oh thoughts and automatic tweets every time a new video goes live. As well, I'll have a link to my Patreon where you can support me if you like the content I make and appreciate the effort I put into editing and recording and things like that. Especially with the Worst Deck of All Time series. It's a very editing intensive video, very recording intensive, and I do think it is one of the best produced Yu-Gi-Oh shows on YouTube. But no pressure to support, no content or anything will ever be gated off. It's just if you have a little extra to give, it would be greatly appreciated and might get you some extra replays that don't make it into videos here and there. Editing me here. Speaking of replays, there will be some replays for this deck in a separate video, just since this one's already so long and rambly. I'll split it up just because most people don't want to watch, a half-hour long deck profile with replays. There'll be one video, which is this one for the deck profile, and a separate one for the replays. So if you want to go check that out, I'll have a card to that on screen now. Anyway, back to live me. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.